When Carrie first came to me and talked about the potential for this class, one of the first things I said was, we have to have Ibrahim Hamide come and talk about Islam and his unique way of seeing the world. And of course, here he is. And so I wanted to give you just a little bit of a biography of Ibrahim. He was born in Bethlehem on the West Bank. He was one of 12 children. 4 of his siblings passed away. And so he grew up with 6 boys and 2 girls. In the spring of 1969, April 1st to be exact, he moved to Eugene. And since he's been here, he's had quite a significant impact, both on a formal basis by his relationship in the interfaith community. He's a regular participant in dialogue that occurs both on a kind of positive, proactive basis, but also in the context of events that occur that need to be discussed and need to be understood and processed by all in the interfaith and human rights community. He's especially focused and expert in the area of peace and justice, with the Arab-Israeli conflict one of his areas of great expertise and concern. I have also had the great pleasure of eating at his many restaurants numerous times throughout the many years. We were just discussing when I first met him, and my memory is as distinct as it is looking at each of you right now, him cooking a fabulous banana flambe. And with the flames going up, and throwing this stuff in there, I don't know, it was rum or something, and singeing the hairs on his chin. But it was a fabulous experience. He went on to work in many of the finest restaurants in Eugene. He currently owns the Casablanca, which is in the 5th Street Market, Xenon Cafe, which is in downtown, and Cafe Soraya, which is on the west side of town, way over there on the other side of the bridge type thing. But he's just a fabulous human being, great contributor to our community and our world, and I'd like for you to warmly welcome Ibrahim Hamide.
Thank you, Dan, for the nice, warm introduction, and to all of you. I'm afraid you're getting less than the fabulous me, because I got a cold that's trying to dampen my physical spirit, but I won't let it. I'm armed with the lozenge. I'm learning how to talk with it, so bear with me. In trying to talk about the subject of Islam, which is, by the way, as Dan mentioned, I was born and raised in a little town of Bethlehem, which is on the west bank of the Jordan River. My passport says I am Jordanian. My brother, who's 2 years older, his passport said he's Palestinian. I have an American passport. I traveled from Bethlehem on a laissez-passer, an international travel permit. I had an Israeli ID, and of course, as I said, I acquired an American passport. So 4 or 5 different documents, not one of them mentioned I was Palestinian. So if I have an identity crisis, I hope you can be understanding of that. Bethlehem, when I was living there, was a town that consisted of 20% Muslims and 80% Christians. So interfaith dialogue, as Dan termed it, came to me by osmosis or by nature. I lived there, they're my neighbors. We didn't have segregated neighborhoods. We didn't have Muslim neighborhoods and Christian neighborhoods, but everybody lived together. And so we were fully aware of each other's religious traditions. And not only that, but we were respectful of them and helped each other keep those traditions. We would go to our Christian neighbors' homes when it's their holidays and congratulate them, and vice versa. They would also do the same when it's our holidays. Manger Square is, you guys know what Manger Square is? It's where Jesus was supposed to have been born. He was supposed to be born in a manger. There's a church built around the manger. It's called the Church of Nativity. Figure that one out, huh? It is, therefore, one of the places where people from around the world, Christians from around the world, pay homage to or pilgrimage to. They go to Bethlehem. So since I was little, I saw many nationalities. Christians from Latin America, from North America, from Canada, from Europe, all descended on my little town of Bethlehem, as the song goes. And I get to practice my 5th grade English with them and take their pictures, and they would take pictures with the native. And, you know, it was a very good experience. I was born in a house that's literally a block and a half from Manger Square. That's where my 2 brothers still live. I wouldn't go too many wows. It does not make me holy, I can profess to you. But anyhow, religion was part of my life. It wasn't something that was preached to me by my parents. It was just lived. You know, my parents prayed 5 times a day. It was time for prayer. You know, my dad would get up and wash, and he would pray. So it wasn't something that was taught to us. It was not something preached to us. It was just something that was emulated. And that's one thing that I want to talk about Islam, or bring up about Islam, that Islam is a religion in action. It's not. There's a little story that I'll tell about the Prophet, where some people came to the Prophet, some of his disciples and him were sitting learning, and some people came to ask him an opinion, and they came and said, Prophet, that's Prophet Muhammad, by the way, they said, we want to ask you about so-and-so. Let's say his name was Dan. Okay, let's ask you. We want you to tell us about Dan. And he says, what about Dan? They said, he fasts all day and he worships all night. And he does that all the time, continuously. So the Prophet said to them, well, who of you feeds him and clothes him? And they sort of looked at each other and they said, well, we all do. Upon which the Prophet said, you're all better than Dan. Okay? You're all better than Dan. The message here is, Islam is not a religion where you're holed up in some little cabin or a little cave somewhere up in the mountains and have a personal relationship with God and feel saved and feel all good and be true to Islam. That is not true to the tenets of Islam. The tenet of Islam is that you work, that you feed your family, that you do jihad. Jihad, oh, that's a scary word. No, feeding your family is jihad. Okay? What you see on the television screens right now in Libya and in Egypt, that's a real picture, collective picture of jihad. Okay? Me leaving the comfort of my home with my high school English and wanting to further my life in a good way, wanting to learn, to seek knowledge, come into a foreign land where I knew nobody. And when I landed in Eugene, I could tell you I might as well have landed on the surface of the moon. There was nothing close to the culture that I was used to, okay? It was patchouli oil, it was hippies, pot, demonstrations against Vietnam, guitars, long hair, okay? I guess most of that dissipated except the pot, thank God, huh? So that is an act of jihad. You guys would say, what is this guy? Is he still on pot from the 60s? No, it is an act of jihad, okay? I mentioned the demonstrations in Egypt and Libya and Yemen and Tunisia as an act of jihad. Because you see, one of the definitions of jihad says, إِنَّ أَعْظَمَ الْجِهَادِ كَلِمَةُ حَقٍّ عِنْدَ سُلْطَانٍ جَائِرٍ. The greatest of jihad. Now we look, أعظم, the greatest of jihad, كَلِمَةُ حَقٍّ, a word of truth, عِنْدَ سُلْطَانٍ جَائِرٍ, before a tyrannical leader. So what they term as speaking truth to power, okay? That's the greatest of jihad. Not killing infidels as Fox News would have you believe, okay? So, but Akbar al-Jihad, the biggest of jihad, there's the greatest and the biggest, okay? The biggest of jihad is jihad al-nafs. Jihad al-nafs. The struggle against one's own desires, wishes, okay? So we desire greed, right? We have greed as a human instinct, right? We like lots of money. We want to get a good education, so we get a really good job, okay? So we can have a really good house, a really good car, a nice fat bank account, and maybe can take a couple of vacations a year. And I wouldn't mind getting a house on the Mexican Riviera maybe, or maybe the French Riviera, right? So we have wishes. And sometimes on the way of getting our wishes accomplished, we do unscrupulous things, unreligious, ungodly things, okay? So that's jihad al-nafs. Reforming yourself, making yourself the best you can be, okay, without violating the tenets of God, okay, without violating the tenets of Islam. So if you say, look, if I play the lottery enough, my chances are I will win it and I could, get all those things. Well, you can't. Gambling is against the tenets of Islam. So you can't go that route. Well, if I just screw a whole bunch of people over, I can make a ton of money. Okay? You can't do that. Try another route. So it has to fall within the tenets. There is nothing wrong in Islam about you being rich. Okay? There is nothing wrong it's not an Islamic for you to own property. Okay? Or a fat bank account. Those are all okay, as long as you have acquired them by means that please God. Because in Islam, this here world is not equal to the wing of a mosquito. Okay? God said the wing of a mosquito is about what this here world is worth. So what do you think is valuable in Islam then? The hereafter. That this life is really a test for us all. Whether basically God and the devil are fighting within each of us. And if God wins, we win. If the devil wins, we don't win. it's an oversimplification of it, but that's what Islam and I suppose Christianity, Judaism, those three Abrahamic religions are all about. So I thought we can. I know that you've had Professor Colby come in,
yes,
right? So you probably you know a lot about Islam already. Although I can put a disclaimer that I don't think you're going to be experts in Islam at the end of today's encounter. Islam is a deep religion, like most philosophies or most religions. It's a sea of knowledge that I don't know of any expert who can literally sit there, even if they've studied it for years, and tell you that they know Islam inside and out. There's a spirituality to religion, right? And that's part of the mystery of it that keeps the religion growing and somewhat unfolding. Okay, it's mysterious. It's not all something. It's not like you can read a statistics book or a calculus book and you can know it from inside and out and be an expert on that. It's a living experience. Most religions are a living document that changes as the human condition changes, because it's subject to what? Interpretation, right? Hence we have so many different religions in the world. Hence we have so many different divisions within each religion. Islam is probably one of one of the least divided religion. There are probably something like 35 to 40 different sects of Islam, while there are probably, how many, does anybody know how many different sects there are in Christianity? Anybody ventures to guess?
1,000?
I was discussing that with somebody the other day, and he was telling me there are 34,000 plus. So there, multiple choice, right, for people to, to go with. But without attempting to insult your intelligence, I'm going to just sort of test you a little bit on Islam and see how much you know. This is a quiz we're going to take together. It's not graded, and if you feel like you want to consult with the person next to you for answers, that's totally okay. And I hope I'm not insulting your intelligence, because it's very simplistic, but it'll tell me a little bit about how much you know about Islam. And that's not the only purpose of it. It will also give us some avenues into discussing some of those issues. So this comes from a training. A part of what I also did is that after 2001, as Dan had mentioned, when events happened, I happened to be in town here, and there was some, of course, backlash against Muslims. My restaurant got a brick thrown through the windows twice, and a smoke bomb was thrown into my restaurant as a retaliation because I'm a Muslim. Okay, but in the immediate aftermath of 2001, I got together with the chief of police, the mayor, and other leaders in town, and we held a press conference basically trying to play down the backlash, the people's anger. That one member of the Muslim community was threatened with death, he and his family. As Dan said, I own restaurants. My face is public. I've been speaking about in interfaith about the Arab-Israeli issues. I've been in the paper hundreds of times, on TV, radio hundreds of times. So everybody knew where I work, where I live, my name is published in the phone book. So I actually was fearful for my family because, like I said, somebody did threaten to bomb and kill a family that he didn't know. In that person's anger, he forgot that there's a new technology called caller ID. So he left his calling card, basically. The police went and fetched him and asked him why he wants to kill this person. Well, because he's a damn Muslim. And then look what they did to us. He said, but this happens to be not a damn Muslim, just a Muslim. He didn't do any of this. He hates those that did it. And, well, I just want to do something, you know? So there's somebody who's trying to channel their anger, right? And doesn't know how to do it without, you know, without committing the same as he's protesting against, right? He's hating the killers. Well, he's going to become a killer in the process, right? So logically, it sort of doesn't compute very well, right? But that's what he wanted to do. Okay. So fortunately, this person from the community was a thoughtful guy, and he says the police wanted him to press charges and put this guy in jail, and he says, no, I want him to do community service at the mosque instead. Okay? And he did, and the result was fabulous. He got to see people for who they are. He didn't convert to Islam or anything, okay? So we're not going that far, but at least he got to meet community. He got to see the Muslim community doing their thing, and he realized that, you know what? I don't want to kill any of those guys. They're okay, okay? But I got trained by somebody to train the police department, the law enforcement, police, TSA, those are the guys that search you at airports, dispatchers, FBI. So I did that. Here in Eugene and Tualatin. I train them on Arab and Muslim cultural competency because it's part of their job that they encounter some Muslim people, okay? And I think it's sort of part of where you guys are heading, that you might encounter some Muslim people, because guess what? There are 1.3 billion Muslims around. Okay, and this country's got 6 million, and they're growing. So I get to do this training to those folks here, the law enforcement, and then to judges up in the state of Washington. And those questions are from there, and we'll see a little video, maybe, about some of that training. So they're simplistic, but they're useful because they... So here's question one. It says the Muslim country, and they're true or false. So it's really easy. Okay. No essays required. A Muslim country with the largest population in the world is Saudi Arabia. True or false?
Oh, true.
False here. True here.
False.
Okay. Let's see a show of hands for true.
Did you say percent or popular?
The largest population.
Population.
Yeah. Who will vote for true? And I feel lonely. Okay, so who votes for false? Who is undecided? Okay, undecided voters, a couple of them. It is false. Anybody can tell me which is the largest?
Indonesia.
Indonesia. I won't be asking you many questions. Okay.
Okay.
Indonesia. Saudi Arabia on a good day when they are flexing their muscles, and they are now because they're quaking in their boots because all the revolutions are around them, they may top 15 million, maybe, okay, when they're, you know, like I said, doing the peacock thing, right? Meanwhile, Indonesia has got 231 million people, 192 million of them are Muslims. Pakistan is second largest. And so Saudi Arabia doesn't even come to compare. But, you know, lots of people say they answer that as true. And can anybody tell me why that some people think maybe Saudi Arabia is the largest Muslim? Go ahead.
I think there's a stereotype that all Muslims are Arab.
Uh-huh.
I just thought because of the shape of the country.
Great. The whole, you know, the other, I think, is because Saudi Arabia is a conservative Muslim country, so there's an identification, and also it holds the two most revered holy places to Muslims on earth, Mecca and Medina, the two towns, and the pilgrimage. One of the 5 pillars of Islam is Hajj, which is the pilgrimage to Mecca. So Mecca is in Saudi Arabia. I think that clouds people's thinking, and they go, "Oh, it might be the largest." Question number 2 says, well, let's skip that. That's a silly question. 3, this now we're moving from Muslims to American Muslims, which is important to your profession in the future. Most American Muslims are of Arab descent. You just touched on that. Most Arab Muslims are of Arab descent. What do you think? Is that true or false? You're shaking your head. He thinks it's false. What do you guys think? False. Anybody joins me? All right. All right, we are right. Can anybody tell me what's the greatest majority of Muslims in this country are? Where do they come from then?
If anyone doesn't, what's gonna win?
Sure.
You said
Muslims, yeah. What's their ethnicity? The Muslims in this country, where do you think they come from? It's a trick question.
here.
Yeah, right on. From here, they're African American. They are from this country. They're natives. Yeah. The second largest minority of Muslims come from Southeast Asia. Arabs are third. Number 4, it says Muhammad is the focus of Muslim worship. He wrote the Quran, the holy text for Muslims. True or false?
False.
False. Anybody wants to argue with those guys? No? All right. Rick has been here, I can tell. All right. Muhammad couldn't read or write.
Couldn't?
Could not. He was illiterate. They call him the illiterate prophet. I know it sounds terrible, but he was smart. Number 5 says, while Jews and Christians worship the God of Abraham, Muslims worship a different God named Allah. True? True? True, true, true. Any dissenters except for you? So what do you think of that? True or false? False, true. It's half. I hear one ear hears true, one ear hears false. Okay, it is false. Okay? You want me to repeat the question?
Yeah.
It says, while Jews and Christians worship the God of Abraham, okay, Muslims worship a different God named Allah. Okay? And we decided it's false, and I'm not going to explain to you why yet. Okay? But I will. Okay, number 6, it says, Muslims reject Moses, Jesus, and Mary as religious figures and do not believe in angels, the second coming of Jesus, or the day of judgment. True or false?
False.
False. Okay.
Rick's been here.
Rick has been here. So, question 5. Islam is an Abrahamic religion. Okay? Yeah. It's an Abrahamic religion. Abraham is the one that that the name Muslim is named after, because Abraham came to God. He submitted his whole self to God. That's the meaning of Islam: submission, total submission to God. That's what Islam means. It's also a derivative, linguistically speaking, of the word salam, which means peace. Okay. 7. We have 3 more to go. Women are not permitted to enter the same entrance as men in mosques, must cover their hair, and should not touch men's hand because they are unequal. True or false?
False. False.
True.
True.
Doesn't it depend on the mosque?
No. No, that goes beyond an individual mosque. That's not a house policy. No. The answer is false, and you know why? Because of that last word, because they're unequal. Okay? The rest of it is true. They have different entrances. They must cover their hair. Okay? They must have the modest garb, and they cannot touch men's hand before prayer. Well, they can if they want to wash again. You have to do ablution. You have to wash, men and women, not men, not women, but both. Yeah, they can touch a man's hand as long as they wash for prayer again.
What about like if you shook Dan's hand, would you have to go wash your hands, or is it just like male to female? Or if like I shook
sexist.
Dan's
No,
hand?
it's just male to female.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
You want to explain why?
I want to explain why. It's part of modesty. The Islam basically believes that our sensuality and sexuality is transferred through the skin touch, the human touch. Well, you would say, duh, of course it does. I mean, that's when we make out. That's how we make out, for God's sake. Of course, we touch each other, right? We don't do it virtually yet, although some people do. But it's still the human touch, right? That's how we tell somebody's skin is tender and soft and sexy and whatever. So still the human emotion. We're a sexual being. We're born that way. I mean, this is part of our instinct, okay? That there's the desires can impede your standing pure with a clean heart in front of God. So it's, again, the same sense of modesty and purification for being with your Creator, okay? So, again, that muddies up the water, okay? Yeah, so.
Do all Islam women cover their hair?
Do all Muslim women cover their hair? No. No. It is, you know, just to give a more generic answer to that, there is no all Muslim people do the same thing. For that 1.3 billion people, they live on every continent of the world. Their customs, their local customs, color their interpretation of that religion. Hence, we find some people like the Taliban that say that they bomb women's school. There's nowhere in Islam, you know? Nowhere in Islam, okay? There are 4 pillars, 4 sources of law in Islam. The Quran, okay? The Quran is the first source. First source. That is, so if we have question about whether women should be educated or not, are they allowed to go to school? We go look here. If we don't find it, we go to Hadith. And this is not all Hadith, but this is an old copy that I had from the 1st grade, and I inherited it. So I'm a little nostalgic, so I brought it. So Hadith is what the Prophet Muhammad said or did, okay? That's then we go to another source called Ijma', which is what the Muslim scientists, theologians, experts have decided, and then Qiyas, which is precedence, basically. So those are the 4 sources of Islam. Well, the teaching of women is is emphasized in all of them. So where those guys come to that interpretation and conclusion is beyond me. I don't understand it. So we'll go over. This is number 8. We get 2 and we'll go on. This one is again about America. It says most Arab Americans are Muslim. Most Arab Americans are Muslim. And what do you guys think? True or false?
False.
False. Any ideas? Believe it or not, 77% of American Arabs are Christians. 77%. The big majority. It's not even a slight, it's big. 77% are Christians. But you know what? In our minds, we think Arabs, we think Muslims, right? I mean, stereotyping, right? We think Arabs, we think Muslims. We don't think Christians, right? Number 9, again, most Arab Americans were not born in the U.S., speak English as a second language. True or false? Again, that's false. The immigrations started from the late 1800s. The Arab immigration was mostly from Lebanon and Syria. Okay, you find pockets of rich Arab cultures, such in Dearborn, Michigan, L.A. That's where they congregate. Last one is a brilliant one. Arab Americans were responsible for the attacks of September 11th, 2001. Arab Americans. Okay, so it's untrue. Oh, good. Let's do this first, just for fun. This is again a number that has changed since this was made, which wasn't that long ago. So you see, 77% are Christian. Look at their educational level, their concentration where they are. They're at 36%, which is probably above the national average of them, hold bachelor degrees. Okay. Arabs are not a minority, so we're considered white. So this, we'll talk about this identity versus religion, because that's often is confused. You know, they think Christian, they think Muslim or Arab are identical or synonymous, and they are not, because you can be a Chinese Muslim, can be a Yugoslav Muslim, you could be an American Muslim, you could be a Canadian Muslim. But now, let me ask you, while we are in this, on the identity, which countries are in the Middle East that are Muslim, that are not Arab? Can somebody name a country in the Middle East that is Muslim but not Arab? Majority of the population is Muslim, but they're not Arabs. Anybody? There are at least 2 of them.
Egypt?
No, Egypt is Arab. They speak Arabic here. In fact, see, it says that right there.
Iran?
There's one. Iran is a Muslim country that is Persian. They speak Farsi. It's not an Arabic language. Although they use the same alphabet, but so do the Latin American countries, and unless you take Spanish, you can't read it, right? Okay. What's the other one? Anybody can help me out?
Bahrain? Is it Bahrain?
No, Bahrain is an Arab country.
Persia?
I could speak, well, Persia and Iran are the same, name for, it's like, say, in the U.S. or America, there are 2 names for the same place.
What about Turkey?
Say that again, louder.
Turkey.
Yes, right on. Turkey, don't be bashful. Turkey, they speak a different language. And again, the majority of the population is is Muslim. Go ahead. Terms. Islam. So Islam means submission to submission, total submission. That's what it means. Okay. Muslim. Go ahead. Muslim is the one who believes in that religion, but really believes and practices what they practice is surrender as submission. Okay? Sure, it has tenets, it has ways of doing it, right? Just like a basketball game would have rules. Can't double dribble, right? You can't travel with the ball, right? There are rules. You can't stand in the key for more than 3 seconds. Those are rules of that game, right? Well, there are rules and ways about practicing your faith, okay? So, but the person who surrenders and submits, and we'll come later to it, but another term, and really important term, is mu'min. Mu'min, and we'll go over that. And that's the Muslim is anybody who says they are that, right? And mu'min is the true believer, the one that actually does those things and does them for the love of God, for the right reasons. Okay, let's look and see what else. Right, good. So we want to go over some of that. Islam is monotheistic, means what? Believes in one God, not a multitude. So Muhammad is not a God. When Muhammad died, he was not very old either. When Muhammad died, the Ummah, the Muslim community, was new, and there was like an earthquake there. Our leader, our big leader, died. What do? Some people wanted to quit. And so Abu Bakr, the one that took over from him, who was his friend and the first to believe in him, in his message, came and gave a famous speech. And part of that famous speech, he says, "Man kana ya'budu Muhammadan," he of you who worship Muhammad, فَإِنَّ مُحَمَّدَ قَدْ مَاتَ. Very, very straightforward. Muhammad has died. Okay? There was no... Arabs are very good at, sprinkling rose petals before they tell you the bad news. Not this guy. Nope. He just sucked it to them straight. He says, "Man kana ya'budu Muhammad fa inna Muhammad qad mat." Muhammad's finished. He died. "Man kana ya'budu Allah," he of you who worshipped God, fa inna Allah hayyun la yamut. God is everlasting, never dies. So he declared to the Ummah that if you worship Muhammad, you were barking up the wrong tree. Muhammad is a human being. He's very special. He's a prophet of God. God brought this message through him, but he is a human being, a blessed human being, like Moses was, like many of the prophets, like John the Baptist, like Noah, and many other prophets. Again, Muslims and Arabs, 20% are Arabs. So you see, if I said China to you, would you think of Muslims? Not really, no? Right? I wouldn't. I mean, normally. But there are over 60 million Muslims in China. If I say Russia, would you think Muslims? Not particularly. But also there are nearly 80 million Muslims in Russia. If I told you India, you would think Hinduism, right? Although India does represent every religion known to mankind is in India. But they also have nearly 70 or 80 million Muslims. So we're scattered everywhere. Iran has 60, 70, Egypt has 80, but the Arabs are a small percentage of them. This is number 5 is important. God is not a he, It's not a she. It's not an it. So we are in grammatical trouble because that's the pronouns that we have. We have he, she, and it, right? We don't have any other. So linguistically speaking, we're in trouble. We can't refer to God. We can, but it does not describe God. We use the he noun for God in all of the religions that I know, but in Islam, God is not a he, it's not a she, it's not an it. God is unknown. God has 99 names to describe him. He's merciful, he's kind, he's strong, he's forgiving, he's loving, he's this, that. There are 90 names. That's God. Okay? But he's not a he, a she, or an it. Okay, let's look at the next.
Can I ask you about
Sure.
number? Could you speak to number 3? Muhammad is. I don't remember it, but I want to hear you speak about.
Muhammad is not the focus of the religion or the founder. Again, Islam, we believe, started with the Prophet Abraham. Okay, but the Islamic religion as we know it was started with the Quran, which is sent to the Prophet Muhammad. So that's really a technical thing. He's not the focus of the religion. He totally is not. The focus of religion is Allah. Do you know what Allah means?
God.
It's the Arabic word for God. So, in other words, as I told you, I was growing up in Bethlehem. We were a mixture of Christians and Muslims, right? When a child fell, as a mother is taking care of his child and skinned his knee, she ran to him and she'd say, Allah ma'ak, Allah ma'ak, Allah ma'ak, God be with you, God save you. A Muslim woman said that, a Christian woman said that. Same exact words, okay? So Allah is an Arabic word for God. Don't let it strike fear, unless you choose to, of course, in your heart. So it's not this foreign, weird entity, okay? It's just God. All right, let's look at the next one. Islam's holy book is called the Quran. It means recitation. It's a collection of revelations. So over 23 years, Muhammad received the Quran over 23 years, okay? So it had literal time-sensitive surahs in it. There's some surahs that speak to events that happened, some that were telling the Prophet, correcting the Prophet Muhammad on some things. Go ahead.
My question was, so if he couldn't read or write, how did you know?
Very good question. How did he receive a message? Yes. Muhammad used to worship well, before he worshipped, he used to be a sort of an oddball. He didn't worship the Arabia at that time, prior to Muhammad. Arabia was a bunch of tribal folks that worshiped many different gods. So they were not monotheistic by any stretch. Each tribe had their own god, and they fashioned them out of different things. Some out of sand, some out of stone, some out of dates. There was a famous tribe, Utayba, I think their name, that they used to make fun of them, the other tribes. They would say, Utayba tu akalat rabbaha. Utayba ate their god, because they made it out of dates, and one time there was some kind of famine, and they actually ate their god. Okay? All right? So it was not unusual for them to have tribal wars. Okay, not unlike what was happening here, in this country when the Indian tribes were divided and they would raid each other and have wars with each other, and so that's the situation. Muhammad was born an orphan. His his dad and mom both died when he was young, and he was raised in the with the Bedouins. And he decided that while he sheep herded, that there's too many unanswered questions in his mind. So he would, while he's sheep herding, he would sit in this cave and wonder about how did the sky, why the stars, why is the day and night, where's the sun, the moon, who made that? What? And so he did that for many years. He never worshipped any of the gods that the tribes worshipped. He was known as the Amin, the honest one, because he's never told a lie, another Abraham Lincoln at that time. So when the first surah of Quran came to Muhammad, he was an older person, and he was worshiping, still pondering, wondering, who created this? What is the meaning of life? And he heard a voice, and it freaked him out, literally, because you worship in the same place for so long, and you're used to it, and suddenly you hear a voice, you're going crazy? And the voice said to him, read. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. Read by the name of God who creates. الذي علم بالقلم. God that teaches mankind by writing. Here is a man who cannot read or write, but yet God gave him a memory that is photographic. So he would take that stuff. Of course, the first day he freaked out. He went to his wife, and it's in the hot Arabian Peninsula, and he said, cover me, I'm freezing. He had the chills. She worried about him. She went to her dad, who was a seer, and she said, my husband is sick. And he said, tell me what his sickness, describe to me what. She said, he came home telling me he's cold, and I'm covering him, and he's still freezing. And she said, he said to her, your husband is the prophet of God. And she looks at him like, what are you talking about? So Gabriel, the messenger of God, okay, would come to Muhammad and would give him a piece of the Quran. And he, with his wife and 2-3 other people, he would go to them and he would recite it back to them. And the next visit, Gabriel would approve it with Gabriel. It sounds really far-fetched, right? It sounds weird, right? But so Muslims believe that every word in this holy book, every single word is the word of God. There is no Paul, there's no Peter writing in it, there's nobody, Muhammad is not writing. And that's part of the miracle of the Quran. Because it says in the Quran, had he sent it to somebody who's a poetic, who's a well-learned man, they will accuse him of writing it himself, as they accuse the Jews and the Christians of writing their own, that it's not the word of God, they wrote it themselves. So that's part of the miracle of the Quran. It's that it was recited by the messenger Gabriel to the Prophet Muhammad over 23 years. So we talked about the second, we talked about the hadith a little bit, okay? The other sources of Quran, we talked of guidance in Islam, the consensus of the community and the independence reason, okay? So Islam is not a political ideology. And you see a lot of what's happening now are people hijacking that to build an Islamic state here or there. So they are politicizing Islam. They're hijacking Islam. So that's what you see a lot nowadays, such as the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and others who want an Islamic state. I allege that they wouldn't recognize one if they saw one. Because there's no Islamic state. Nobody rules by Sharia. There's no nation in the world that rules by Sharia. Islam, a religion of practice, we talked about that. Social conduct, we'll talk about that Let's go next. Perfect. All right. All of those 5. Okay, so we have your chairs. Those are a bad example. I was going to say your chair stands on 4 legs, but it's a continuous, most normal chairs, tables. Table stands on 4 legs, right? A unicycle is not as steady as a bicycle, right? A tricycle is more steady than a bicycle. And a car has 4 wheels. It's more steady than any of them, right? Well, Islam has got 5 wheels. It's really steady, So the profession of faith, those are what is called a shahadatain, the 2 witnessing. Ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah. I witness that there's only one God. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And I witness that Muhammad is a messenger of God. It doesn't say the messenger, the only messenger, okay, the most important messenger, a messenger of God, okay? That's what that is. So if you say that, you become a Muslim, okay? Then you have those 4 responsibilities on you. Prayer, salah. Do you know how many times Muslims pray?
5.
Was that high 5?
5.
Low 5? Yeah. 5 in either case, right? 5 times. Do you know why they pray? Because God said so. Yes, you're right. But also, if you pray 5 times a day, our life is confusing. It's full. We're carrying an umbrella, riding a bicycle, and we're on an iPhone. I mean, that is not an unusual scene on campus as you see it, right? Our life is complex. We try to make sure we're ubiquitous. We take advantage of every minute that life doesn't pass us by. So we can easily get confused or swayed in one direction or the other. Salah, 5 times a day, we Muslims take off our shoes, we do our ablution, we clean ourselves, we wash for prayer. And there is a ritual for that. You wash the hands from here, from the wrist down. You wash the mouth, the nose, the ears, the hair, the neck, then back to the arms and the feet. So you clean yourself for prayer. You find a clean place. It doesn't make a difference where. If you have a rug, that's why you see rugs, because you could put it over here where people have walked with their shoes, and still the surface that you're praying on will be still clean. So what's the requirement? That you have ablution, that you're clean, that you pray in a clean place. Okay, those are prerequisites for prayer. That you face Mecca. Okay, that you intend prayer, and then you pray. So what do we say when we pray? What do we say? Anybody has any idea? There is a surah, a part of the Quran, okay, that we have to read. It's compulsory. Everybody has to read it. And let's see, I can read it for you. And it's a small surah, but it's translated here somewhere if I can ever find it. It basically is in the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. May you guide us to the righteous path, etc. Just not very long. And then after that, it's freelance. And we can read any other surah from the Quran, okay? And then that finishes what's called the rak'ah. After that, we get down to our knees and we say, Subhana Rabbiyal Azim 3 times, Subhana Rabbiyal Azim. Praise be to my God, the high, the mighty, okay? And then after that, we get down to our knees and we touch our forehead to the ground and we say, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la 3 times. Rabbi al-A'la, God the first one, God the great, the mighty. The other one, God the high. Okay? So we're saying praises to God 3 times when we're standing and 3 times when we touch. Then we sit back down in this position. We do it again, and then we get up. By the time we get up, that's called rak'ah. That's 1 rak'ah, 1 kneeling. Okay? Now, the morning prayer consists of 2 kneelings. The noon one is 4, the afternoon is 4, the dusk is 3, and the last one is also 4. So those are the required prayers. Those are part of Pillar of Islam. Okay, those are the required. Now, there is nawafil. Nawafil is sunnah, what the Prophet Muhammad would do. And those are what Dan would call extra credit, okay? So it's extra credit. So for instance, after the prayer in the morning when I get up before dawn, painful for somebody who runs a restaurant and stays up till late, right? So to get up, set your alarm early, get up and wash, and you know, of course you're not supposed to be disgruntled about the whole thing. You know, oh darn, I got to do this. So yeah, that attitude doesn't fly. So you got to do it with the fullness of your heart. Go ahead.
The Islamic religion professor can say that not all Muslims here or around the world pray 5 times.
Yes, very true.
Okay.
And I tell you, I am the first to raise my hand of being guilty of not being able to partially, and a great part of that is because of my job. At 7 o'clock at night, we're very busy in the restaurant. So by the time it's 8:15, 8:30, it's too late. That time, because time is of essence here. So you can't. So what you can do is later on you can make it up. So you take an incomplete and make it up later. So the religion is meant for making it easy on people. Go ahead.
What about time changes?
Yes, you incorporate that according to the locality that you're in. Yeah. So go ahead.
What about like people, like elderly people or people with disabilities?
Good question. Now, does everybody pray? Everybody that can. And they say even people with disability, people that are totally paralyzed, can pray with their eyes. Any part of their body that moves, they can simulate prayer. And of course, their reward is huge because, you know, of their plight. Okay? All right. So I am not really sure about when do people start praying, when they're 12, 11. Yeah. I think there are variations on that. They're not a set one. So we pray 5 times a day. Now, let me just entertain something with you here, because somebody says, God, I'm glad I'm not a Muslim, man. I pray, you know, I go to church once a week and I've had it, you know, I've had enough, you know. And yeah, I see their point. But guess what? Each prayer, roughly between the washing to finishing the prayer, at the end of the prayer, by the way, there's something important that happens. It's called dua, which is freelance asking God for you and God talking, basically. You're asking for you to succeed in your midterms, or in your business life, or to give you good health, or to give the poor homes. Whatever your heart's desire, the essence of who you are, you share that with God. This is your chance to do beyond the compulsory. This is for you to show God what you want, what you're hoping for. And of course, you know, as we become wise, we don't ask for things, okay? The Prophet Muhammad is reputed to have this kid that just loved him, and he wanted to serve him all the time. You know, he'll come hang out with him. He's 10 years old, and he says to him, anything you want me to run some errands for you? And so one day he came to him, the Prophet Muhammad came to him, and his name is Rabi'a, and he says, Rabi'a, now ask something of me. You always ask me if I want something. Now it's your turn. He wanted to give him a gift. So he's 9. They say he was either 9 or 10. They're not sure about his age. So Rabi'a said to the Prophet, "Give me time to think." Whoa, pretty smart kid. You know, I would have 10 wishes already, you know, ready, right? He says, "Give me time to think." And the Prophet did one of those, yeah, probably not, but he waited for the kid. The kid just didn't answer, and he says, "Ask me." You know, he invited him again, and he said, "I want to accompany you in heaven." And the Prophet went, "What?" He says, "What else?" It's like, okay, fine. What else? And he says, "There's nothing else I would ask." He said, "Who told you to say that?" And he says, "No one." And he says, "So why would you ask for that?" He says, "Because anything you could give me in this world will go away, will break, will be spent. But that will never be spent." Okay? Now, so this kid happened to be wise beyond his years, but that's so when we are asking for dua, we can ask for Mercedes-Benz, or we can ask for, you know, us to be good people. It depends on who we are and what we want. So, just to finish my thought, so between washing and praying, we spend, what do you think? Each prayer, the largest is 4. So even if we did the extra credit, we spent what, 10 minutes? 15? Let's say 15. 15 times 4 is what, 60? 60 is 1 hour. 1 hour deducted from 24 leaves us what, 23 hours? To frolic, to study, to sleep, to speak on the phone and ride our bicycle and have an umbrella over our head? Okay? All right. So now, is that too much? You think it's too much? I mean, and it's rhetorical. You definitely don't have to answer it. You raise your hand.
I was just wondering, in Islam, is there, I mean, in like Christianity, you have a pastor that's standing up in front of the church. Do you have anything like that in Islam? Or, because it kind of seems like you're on your own on it.
Yes and no. In prayer, when you're praying by yourself, you're on your own, but you can't pray in communal prayer, and then there is a person who leads prayer. He's called an imam. Imam is the leader. Okay? And the imam has to be the most learned in the group. Let's say we happen to be together on a class outing, and we're Muslims, and it's prayer time. The most knowledgeable person will be the leader, the one who knows the Quran best, the one who knows the religion best. You had a question.
Just curious, in my experience with witnessing that prayer, it's always a different time. Some are much longer. They pray 3 times a day, and they prayed at least a half an hour each time. Some are much shorter, around 10 minutes. What is the...
Somebody was really deficient and needs extra credit a lot. Yeah.
Or maybe someone telling them to do that?
No. No. Those are the required 5 prayers are the required ones. Anything you do after that, for instance, during the month of Ramadan, which is this next number 3 here, they do what's called Salat al-Tarawih, which are 11 rak'ahs, 11. You know, those are supposed to get you closer to God. The purpose is the same. So there, you go to the mosque during Ramadan, and there may be 20 people. You go on a Friday, which is a communal prayer. Okay, it's the Saturday to Jews and the Sunday to Christians, and you'll find the local mosque here in Eugene, Oregon, chock full, right? But you go to the electives, if you will, to the extra credit, and you might find 10, 15 people who get together and they say, you know what, we sinned plenty, we need more, whatever. But that's a personal choice. Yeah.
Also, you don't have to go to community prayer, right?
Friday is really in the four sources of law in Islam, they all emphasize that Friday prayer is, yes, you need to go. Yeah. So I leave my work and I go. So in other words, that rhetorical question that I asked is more thought, food for thought for you guys, is to think, so within the 1 hour we give to God, we're remembering that we have a relationship with something greater than ourselves and something greater than our beloved teacher Dan and the university as a whole, and Eugene, Oregon as a whole, and the United States even, and guess what? The Western culture and the whole world. You see how you start looking at focus, that this whole ball that's suspended in air, in the sphere, in the galaxy, is not the most valuable thing. There's a relationship more valuable. Okay, so that's what this reminds you. And it reminds you of what you need to do to get to this valuable place, which is don't cheat, don't steal, don't hurt others, help the poor, take care of the orphan, etc., etc., etc. The Islamic religion as well. But those are the pillars of it, okay? Fasting, Ramadan. Ramadan, have you guys heard of it? Ramadan is a month in the Islamic calendar, so it's a month like April. It is on the lunar calendar, so it does not stay static, but it moves. It gains about, in the last 2 years and this year, it's somewhat painful because it comes in August when the day is long, because Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset. Okay? So it makes it, and for people like me, who are chefs, who are preparing delicious food, while their stomach is growling, and nobody's around, and yet God is around, right? So I don't go, well, nobody's looking. All right, we're all good, right?
Have you been tempted when you were in the kitchen?
No, not really, not really. Once, maybe before, it's beyond my memory now, I may have, but no, not really. Muslims do not eat, drink, or engage in sexual behaviors between sunrise and sunset. But watch out once that's over, huh? Yeah. So now, that's not all they do in Ramadan. That's not the only thing. You're supposed to work half days, and you're supposed to worship the other half. You're supposed to bring somebody to break the fast with you off the street, somebody who's hungry, somebody who's a stranger, somebody that could use the food. So it's a relationship between you and your God. It's not about, and it says that clearly, that your hunger should not be like that of a dog who can't find a bone. So it isn't because you can't find food. I can find food. I'm preparing delicious food. And I tell you, sometimes it causes embarrassment when I'm training a new cook and I'm making a soup and I taste it and I go to the sink, spit it, and rinse my mouth out. And the guy's looking at me like, I don't think I want to work here. He doesn't even like his own food. So I have to explain to him, no. By the way, it is Ramadan. I'm fasting. I can't eat. So hence this. But go ahead.
So I'm looking at more in the, isn't that kind of, your body kind of hurtful? What kind of?
Does it hurt your body?
Yeah, helpful.
Well, it can, but if it does, then you can't fast. If you're diabetic, if you're on a long journey that's arduous, that needs your, all your physical prowess, then you cannot. So the fast and broad rule about fasting is if it causes you bodily harm, you cannot do it. So a pregnant woman cannot fast. Cannot. She cannot be a hero. I want extra credit. God, I want to fast. No, it's on the opposite. It becomes a sin against her if she tries to fast. She has a responsibility to her fetus. She cannot fast. Go ahead.
Can you speak as to the intention of the fast? Is
Yes.
it a representation of giving up something?
Yes.
Or?
So why do Muslims fast? Why? Again, just like prayer, because God said so. But what else? What are the benefits of fasting?
Kind of a way to know how it feels to not be like, to understand, be humble, I guess, kind of, to understand others that don't have probably
Right.
food, or
Yeah.
kind of put them in a situation.
That's one. Yes, when you fast and your stomach growls, it makes you think of those whose stomachs growl not because they have delicious food in their kitchen, but because they have no food. They have no food. They can't find food. Okay? It makes you have something very vital in our lives: compassion for others. Compassion. It makes you compassionate. Okay? It pulls on your heartstrings. And that's where compassion is. Okay? It's in our heart. And it may make me take some action, reach in my pocket and write a check, or go down to my local charity and take some food for them, or buy them a basket of food or something. It may spur me if I'm going, God, that doesn't feel good. I don't like being hungry. God, there are people who do this every day, not during Ramadan, but 12 months out of the year, 24/7. They have to, in this country, amongst children alone, there are 16.7 million hungry children in the United States of America. 16.7. 1 out of every 4 children is hungry. Okay? Has some form of hunger. In this greatest nation on earth, by far none, we are the greatest nation. We're the light upon the nations. We're the city upon the hill. Okay? We're the greatest nation on the earth, and 1 out of our 4 children is hungry. Now, do we want to just go, okay, another stat for me to know, okay, big deal, what do I... In Islam, in hadith here, it says, من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. Okay, who wants to translate this? You? Okay. I thought you raised your hand. You said, I can translate it. All right. So, it says, he of you who sees a wrong, a munkar is a sin, wrong, like 1 out of 4 children is hungry. That's a wrong sin. Let him change it with his hand. Okay? Let me give you a simpler example. Okay, something not so esoteric. You walk by and you see a girl on campus, somebody's snatching her purse away from her, trying to steal her purse, right? You see that, that's wrong. In Islam, you say, you have to change it with your hand. You have to go and, and separate those two, get the purse to the owner, right? But this guy is 6'4", he's full of muscles, he can kick your ass, okay? And you don't want your ass to be kicked, right? So you're going, do I have another choice? Well, in Islam it says, فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطَعْ, if he cannot do it. Okay, you're 5'4", the guy's football player, you don't have a chance, you probably get hurt, all right? So it gives you another choice. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطَعْ, if he cannot, فَبِلِسَانِهِ, with his tongue. Okay, so try your speech persuasive powers and say, hey dude, I bet you she doesn't have $20. Look, I'll give you $20 if you leave her alone. Or however persuasive methods you want to use. But that's your second choice. And then your third choice, فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطَعْ, it gives you another choice. If he cannot, let's say the guy is totally high on drugs, he pulls a gun, he says, shut the up or I'll blow you away. Okay? Are you supposed to stand there like a fool and get your head blown off? No. It gives you one more option. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطَعْ, if he cannot, فَبِقَلْبِهِ, with his heart. Okay? So we have one more option. How do we do that with our heart? And it says, by the way, at the end of that, it says, وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ, and that's the weakest of faith. That's the minimum acceptable standards you can do, is to well, how do I do that? I do not take that attitude in my heart and in my mind, of course, in all my faculties, to say, look, I'm not the campus police. Why is she walking around with a purse, like this dangling, like a loaf of bread? I mean, she's asking for it, for God's sake. It happens in Chicago, it happens in New York, it happens all over the place. I'm not my sister's keeper in this case. Why am I worried about it? It's not my problem. And social ills happen all the time everywhere. I'm naive, I'm Pollyannish. What am I doing thinking about this? You can't do that in Islam. You don't have the options. I'm sorry. You got one of those three. Okay? So, break time. That sounds wonderful. Second lozenge. All right, so I want to go through this, then I want to show maybe about 8 minutes of video, then maybe we can break into smaller groups and discuss one of 4 or 5 things that I will suggest. You could take 3 of them maybe out of the 5. We can adopt them together, decide on them, and then discuss them for 15 minutes. Then we can come back as a whole group and debrief and talk about them. But I do want to finish the last. You can't, we talked about fasting. Water, juice, anything, also liquids are not allowed. So it's not just food. Okay, so you can't drink liquids. And if you're a smoker, you can't smoke. Okay, so if you have questions about that, ask anytime. Zakat is the 4th pillar of Islam, and it is the giving of 2.5% of your assets to charity, to the poor, actually, more accurately to the poor. So you can actually and like you asked about, the Muslims don't have a figurehead somewhere. We don't. We don't have a pope. We don't have a figurehead somewhere. So this zakah, this 2.5% of your money, it goes straight to the poor. There are regulations about it, of course. So the poor in your immediate family is the most deserving. Then the poor in your extended family, then the poor in your neighborhood, then the poor in the next neighborhood. So it's very linear in character, okay? And so if I'm in Eugene, Oregon, and I don't have family that's poor, so I would go to my neighborhood, okay? It doesn't matter if they're Christians, if they're Buddhist. Doesn't matter what religion they espouse. Go ahead.
And if you're poor, like you're the poorest in the family, what then? Then
the others that are capable give the money to you. Yeah.
And you don't have to give any portion.
No, 2.5% of 0 is still 0, right? Yeah. So, yeah. Go ahead.
What if you know a family member or someone in your community that is needing of this money is going to use it in a negative way, like to harm themselves or? Yeah,
then discretion. You follow the guidance of the Quran, the Sunnah, all the 4 sources. What would you do? So if this person is going to buy a gun and shoot themselves, no. If they're going to shoot drugs into their body, so there are stipulations on every one of those and rules guiding. So each one of those is a volume of knowledge and writings about each one of them, how those happen. But we're not going to go, in depth in all of them unless you want me to. But if you have questions, you're more than welcome. Pilgrimage is the last one. Pilgrimage is called Hajj. It is it takes about a week. It takes place in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca, specifically Mecca and Medina. They're the rituals. It happens once in a lifetime to those that can afford it. So I can't pull my Visa card and say, I'm going this year. And I tell you why I can't do this. Because part of the prerequisite of Hajj is that you have money that you have saved and put aside for one whole year without ever needing or hoping to dip into it for, oh, I wish I can educate my child, or I wish, I could get my wife the surgery she needs, or I wish I could do this. That money has to be above and beyond that, okay? Your immediate needs. And it has to be dedicated for a whole year and not needed for the purpose of Hajj. Then you can go. But you can't put it on that. You can't deficit spend on Hajj. You can't pull your almighty Visa or MasterCard or American Express. And they don't take, no, I won't go there. Anyhow, I was going to defame one of the credit card companies, but I refrained. So those are the 5 pillars of Islam. Okay? So those are that's what Islam stands on. Each of them are expansive. We talked about the 4 laws of of Islam, the 4 sources of Islam quickly. Now, does everybody do that? Somebody said not everybody prays 5 times. True. Does everybody fast? No. Even ones that are capable. Because Muslims are just like Christians or Jews or any other religion, Buddhist. They do not all follow their religion perfectly, right? There's some people who pray, once in a while. They're Muslim light, right? So they fast 2 days out of Ramadan. So it's, again, there's a major difference, and I want you to know and know well. If you don't learn anything from this except that this, I'd be happy almost, is that there's a difference between Muslims and Islam, okay? There's a major difference, okay? So not every Muslim is a good Muslim. Okay, not every Muslim is a good Muslim. Okay, so that will explain to you what you see on CNN of Muslims hijacking the religion and killing people and taking hostages and beheading people and doing ridiculous things. And people get into Islamophobia and say, oh, my goodness, that religion is violent. You think Islam is violent? No, Muslims are violent. There is nowhere in Islam, in the books. Let me read you, since I'm there, and it won't take too long. Carrie, I'm totally cognizant of time, and I know where the line is now. This is hadith from the Prophet Muhammad, and they're authenticated. This one says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet says, لا تدخلوا الجنة حتى تؤمنوا. You will not enter paradise till you become pious. ولا تؤمنوا حتى تحابوا. And you will not become pious till you love one another. And then he says, أولا أدلكم على شيء إذا فعلتموه تحاببتم. Shall I show you something that if you do, you will love each other? A rhetorical question, and he goes on to say, "Afshu salama bainakum, afshu salama bainakum." Spread peace amongst each other. Spread peace amongst each other. This is the religion of Islam in a nutshell. Okay, so when you see the violence and you can't reconcile it in your mind, you go, "What? This guy said this, and look what the Muslims are doing." Yeah, true, absolutely true. There are 1.3 billion Muslims. Maybe 500 million of them are crazy nuts. Let's not exaggerate too much. Let's say 5 million of them are total nuts and radicals and interpret Islam in a stupid, violent, to their political agendas. That still statistically is almost insignificant, statistically. But I tell you what, the voice that speaks out loud, the bomb that goes off is not insignificant. Maybe statistically so, but not insignificant. When you see blood, you go, oh my God, those Muslims are horrible. And guess what? You're absolutely 100% right. Those Muslims are horrible. Not according to you only, according to Muslims. According to Muslims. And if you want, because often people say, well, why don't you Muslims say something about that? We do. Why doesn't your media cover it? Is the question. Okay? Because I can read you documentations of Muslims, imams that go on tours to Auschwitz. Things, horrible things that happened years back because they care, because their heart and their religion tells them so. So Muslims are diverse, and therefore their interpretation of religion is diverse. And let's look at who Muslims are. I mean, this is just a sampling. We always, I mean, because of lack of knowledge, because we don't know each other, and that doesn't just go for Muslim, Christian, or any other religion, but when we don't know each other, they say a stranger is somebody you haven't met. So when we don't know each other, there's the fear factor, especially if we're, psychological experiments prove that if a person is hungry and they're really, really hungry and you start showing them images of things that are not food and you ask them what they are, they say, oh, that's a carrot, that's a tomato. So it's a projection. So when we're afraid, just like this person that threatened the Muslim family in Eugene, Oregon, or like those people that threw bricks through my glass window at the restaurant, they're projecting their anger and their fears on me, okay? So we do that to one another. And it happens between men and women, it doesn't have to have a label, Islam, or, or even an ethnic label, or, you'll see that sometimes when we use stereotypes to guide our behavior towards one another. And a woman sitting in an airplane, she takes her seat, she puts her purse next to her, and this African-American man walks and looks at oh, that's my seat, and she clutches her purse really fast to her, as if her purse is in danger. Has she ever met that man before? No. No, she hasn't. But she harbors in her mind some negative stereotypes of African Americans. Has she ever been hurt by one? Most likely not. But that's fear speaking, not her. Because if she sits across the table having dinner with this man later on, maybe she will find that he's a gentleman and that she's totally fine with him. But she never got past the fear factor. Fear factor stopped that relationship cold. Okay, and she acted on fear. So when we act on fear, that's what we play football with each other. We stiff arm each other. All right, stay away. I'm afraid of you, because, on Abraham Maslow's hierarchical, right? Remember, survival is way up there, right? And fear is a function of survival. When we're afraid, and it protects us from whatever. Go ahead.
Can you speak a little bit about honor killings and how, where that got its roots?
Yeah. It got its roots prior to Muhammad, prior to Islam in Arabia. It's a cultural custom, not a religious custom. One of the first things that the Quran forbade, not drinking wine, not eating pork, but the killing of, it's called Wa'd al-Banat. Before, I told you they warred with each other, those tribes, and one of the things they did with tears in their eyes, with broken hearts, is to bury their daughters who are 9 years and older into the sand alive and kill them. because they did not want them to fall into the hands of their enemies after a raid, and where they would rape them and do things to them, okay? So their parents would kill them. So the dishonor in a family comes from cultures, whether it's in Pakistan or in Jordan, where if a girl dishonors her family by, having a sexual relationship outside of marriage, they would kill her. Does Quran say that? No. It's a cultural thing, and varies from Libya to Saudi Arabia to even Muslim countries. So it's a cultural thing, yeah.
Does that still occur?
Oh, yeah. Fortunately, very infrequently, but yeah, it still does. Not bad. So, the image of Muslims, they, again, like I said, they're so diverse. To think of one size fits all, it's not true. After 2001, this country didn't act very Christian either in the way, to some degree. I just want to say this. In my restaurant, there's a long counter at the bar, Muslims selling alcohol, illegal, bad. But there's a counter almost as long as this side of the room. I told you about the people that threw bricks through my window and the one that threw a smoke bomb. But to be fair, and I want to be fair, is that counter that I had was totally filled with bouquets of flowers and cards, okay, from the good people that knew me and loved me and called me and offered me the safety of their home if I was afraid for myself and for my family, and the ones that sent me flowers and cards. This is also America. Because when I go back home, I become the self-appointed attorney for the United States of America because they pepper me with all kinds of questions. Why are you still living in that forsaken land? We read the other day, we saw that in Chicago, little old ladies have like 12 locks on their doors before they open the door, and people get raped, and women throw their kids in a lake and they blame it on African American, Susan Smith in somewhere, anyhow. And they go tell me all those horror stories. And I said, yes, those are all true. Those are all true. But you come to America and you go on Sunday to churches, and they're chock full of people that are doing what you guys do on Friday. They're looking for their soul. They're worshiping God. They're doing good things. America is the most charitable country in the world. They send money elsewhere in the world. They save Africa, Europe. I said, that's also America. Judging people by their weakest link, by their worst quality, by their worst attribute is not fair. And not accurate either. Not just fairness. It's not accurate. To judge any of you by the blemish on their skin, okay, or the color of their skin, as Martin Luther King would say, rather than the content of their character, is not healthy. It's not accurate. It's not accurate. Not just not healthy. It does not make for a good society. And in Islam, a good society is the most important building block for life. Because if you don't have a healthy society, you will have a child in every four that are hungry. You will have poverty. You will have the haves and the have-nots. And then those people will get angry and become terrorists because nobody will listen to them. Right? Okay. We need to break into small groups. I have had, I mean, we really can discuss anything, but one question that I thought we could ponder in our small groups is, how does understanding Islam or understanding a little bit about Islam help you in your future work, what you're about to embark on? So that's one. Is interfaith a good idea? Duh, I know, but tell me why, right? Have religions been the cause of violence in this world? Or is it is violence a function of the religion? Those are three. Is there a good substitute for religion? Can you guys come up with something? Not pot has been invented already, all right? Something new, okay? So we'll go counterclockwise, just for a change. So you took the first one. So what could you tell us what you came up with?
We kind of came up with a lot of things. We kind of were all over the board, but I think one of the biggest things we talked about, a couple of things with the first question, is that when you have an understanding about something, it breaks stereotypes, because stereotypes and understanding are opposed to each other. So when you educate yourself about Islam or whatever the case is, you're automatically more able to do your work more effectively because of that understanding, and that everybody, exists in a context. So when you have an understanding of their context, then you have a better understanding of who they are as individuals, whether it's a client or a colleague. Having a better understanding of the context that they're in gives you a better understanding of who they are. So we talked about other things. I don't know.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on how sometimes in this field, religion's not a topic we're supposed to bring up, or it's something we're not supposed to address socially. It's something that people don't usually openly discuss, and there's kind of a stigma with discussing religion. And we were talking about how with some people, religion is a huge strength, and it's our job as human services professionals to bring out those strengths in our clients, and how the more educated we are about Islam or any other cultural religion, the better we're going to be able to serve these clients, and how it's our responsibility to lead that momentum and make people feel comfortable and address their strengths.
Anybody else took the same one? Did you address the same one?
The first one? Yeah, we talked about almost all of them.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'll just make a quick comment. I'm impressed with what you came up with. I think that's right on. I would just augment that by saying it will offer you insight, knowing somebody's culture or religion, and it can be on the big basis or the small basis, the individuals, will offer you some tools that may help you in doing your job better too. For instance, Islam, if you know somebody's strength is their spirituality, you can use that. You can use that as a tool. You say, well, don't you believe God will, if you do your best, God is there to help? It's a source of strength to them, and you recognized it and you brought it to the table, okay? For instance, Muslims believe in fate, that if God is, we do our best, and then it's after that it's in the hands of God. So worrying about it and pulling your hair out and stressing is not very Islamic, for instance. So when you meet a Muslim family, it is very good to remind them that, didn't you do your best? And they would say, yes. Don't you leave the rest to God? And they say, yes. You know, they totally would go there with you, okay, if you knew that is a tool. So, and that means even if they have an autistic child or a child of special needs, right? It's hard for parents to take that on. But if you remind them that that's God's will, that's God's child, that God created that child as well, because in their emotional state or their frustration or their inadequacy to deal with that special needs person, they may forget that. They totally may forget that. And you as the helper, you come along and you remind them that. And they take solace with you. Not only that, guess what you create? A rapport. A rapport is an important ingredient for you to help somebody. If they don't like you for some reason, you have a harder time trying to, check that with yourself, with your teacher in the 2nd grade, with your doctor, with your coach. If you didn't have rapport with them, you don't perform. You don't give them the labor of love, okay? When you are with somebody that you care about, respect, and care and have a rapport with, you go the extra mile. So that's really well said. You guys also?
Yeah, just on a, surface level, or I can't think of the word, but honoring the time of Ramadan and like, a Muslim who might be very pious and is praying 5 times a day when you're scheduling, say they're your client, you're scheduling something with them, not eating in front of them, maybe not offering food if you're aware, being flexible with their praying 5 times a day as far as arranging time with them, like those kind of things would help your work.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think when people know that if you go to France and you speak nothing but English and you order the cheeseburger, they give you the worst food. Oh, American imbecile, right? You speak a couple of words of French, they go, oh, what is, at least he or she are making the effort. They try, to be nice. So I think it's similar attitude. So if you show that you care about the culture, you don't go to Mexico and order the cheeseburger. I mean, come on. What are you telling those people? They don't have good food? Or, no, I don't believe your food is going to make me sick. I'm going to order a cheeseburger. I'm going to find a McDonald's. So you see, that is the opposite of creating a rapport. When you show disrespect, especially in the Islamic and Arab countries, number 1 attribute in those cultures is hospitality. Okay, don't forget that. So if you are as a helper, you go into somebody's home and they offer you, let's say, cookies and tea. And let's say you're allergic to sugar or you don't want to eat, you're on a diet or something, you don't even have to do the whole explanation. You can accept it even if you don't drink it. You could say, okay, thank you. But it should show that you accepted their hospitality, but you may have a reason for not indulging, okay? But if you didn't accept their hospitality, it's in the Quran. There's an example about when the angels were coming down to destroy the city of Lot, okay? They came to Abraham, and they were in the form of human beings. And so as the hospitality dictates, he went and killed a calf and roasted it and brought it to them. And they're angels. They don't eat man's food. And so when he saw, although the Quran says that, the Torah, and I think the Bible says a different version, when he saw that they didn't reach for it and eat, he mistrusted them. He started getting afraid of them. Because that's how it's not an enemy, somebody coming to harm you, is when they don't eat of what you offer. Okay? It means, no, we're not breaking bread together, all right? So in the Quran says, فَأَوْجَسَ مِنْهُمْ خِيفَةً. He got afraid of them. Then they tell him, we are messengers of God. We came for Lot. So don't be afraid. We don't eat this food. And then he started pleading with them about not destroying the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry, went off on a tangent, but so eating, accepting the hospitality of somebody else, it's entrenched in their culture and their religion. So you see, it's part of who they are. Okay?
I'm just surprised because that same story can be also found in the Bible.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
And by the way, just generally, I don't want to, the Quran, the Bible, and the Torah are so similar, you'd be blown away. And for a Muslim, the articles of faith for a Muslim, you have to believe in the Torah. Did you see the kid in the YouTube thing that says, "I love Jesus"? You see that? We have to believe in Jesus. We have to believe in the Torah. We have to believe in the Bible. We have to believe in Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Noah, John the Baptist. All of those are prophets of God. We have to believe in them. We have to believe in Judgment Day. We have to believe in hell and heaven. We have to believe in the angels.
So something that always has perplexed me is because I've heard that many times, obviously, but there are things, and I don't know a whole lot about Judaism, but I know more about Christianity. There are a lot of things that are in, the New Testament, for example, that are pretty contradictory to that, and I was hoping maybe you could speak to that a little bit. I know obviously New Testament is more Christianity.
Right. And so we believe in the original Bible, in the original Torah. The reason God sent the Quran, we Muslims believe there are 3 chapters of the same book. They send the Torah first to Moses, and if you read the Quran, there are tons of mentions of Moses. I mean, the Quran basically is 3 segments: stories, legislative, and Tawheed. Tawheed is the oneness of God, assuring the oneness of God. So that's basically rough. In the stories, you'll find the story about Mary. I can read it to you right now, about how she had Jesus, the whole story about Moses, about Joseph. All of those you'll find them in the Quran, the Torah, and the Bible. Not identical sometimes, just like the story of Jesus. If we believe in Jesus, let me just finish that one thought, which is about the 3 books. God sent the Torah first to Moses, and the Jews differed and changed it, and they had sects. Okay, they fought amongst themselves who has the truth. The rabbis differed. They fought. Suddenly, the Torah is not original, not pure. It changed some. So he sent Jesus with the gospel, with the Injil, or the Bible. And if you come to my house, I have those side by side, not on top of each other out of respect, but the Torah, the Quran, and the Bible sitting on my desk, and I read them simultaneously, and they stand like this. They don't sit one on top of the other out of respect. They are, as we speak, well, the Quran is missing because I have it here, but so I believe in those books. I read them because I'm instructed by my holy book. So Jesus came to correct that. What happens, again, people fought over the Injil, the Bible. It changed. They went into 34,000 sects now. So God said, okay, all right, it's the 3 strikes, you guys are out. I'm sending one more book, the final chapter. It's capturing the essence of both of those books. Okay? It's capturing the essence of both of those books. And it says, according to the Quran, that it's foretold in the Torah, it's also foretold in the Holy Book of Jesus, the Bible, that there will be the last messenger, there will be one more messenger bringing a book. The Muslims also believe there is Judgment Day, and before Judgment Day that Jesus will come back and unite it as one nation. Not Muhammad, because God said so. Muslims are not egotistical like, oh, if it's not a Muslim, he's not cool. No, it isn't. It's what God said. It's what God said. Also Muslims believe that there will be Jews that will go to heaven, there'll be Christians that will go to heaven. It'll be Zoroastrians that will go to heaven. Does that make us believe in multitude of religions? No. We believe it's one God for everybody. Now, God, Allah, is not the God of Muslims. He's the God of everybody. He created everybody, Muslims and non-Muslims. Okay? There was a story in Iraq where Harun al-Rashid, during one of the Abbasid Khalifa Muslim empire, where some Jews came and complained to the ruler. They said, you know, some people are giving us a hard time because we're Jews. And so the Khalif, So he went to the Friday prayer and he became an imam, the leader of the prayer. He asked if he could deliver a sermon. And in leading the prayer, the first compulsory reading that you have to do says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Gratitude and praises be to God, the Lord of the worlds. And it goes on. So when he recited it, he said, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Muslimeen. Praises be to the God, the Lord of the Muslims. And so whoever is behind him in line is supposed to correct him and say, Rabbil Alameen. So he's supposed to repeat it correctly, right? But he insisted, Rabbil Muslimeen, and he continued to pray. And so after prayer, they came to him, they said, you made a mistake in reading of the Quran. You said Rabbil Muslimeen, the God of the Muslims. It is Rabbil Alameen, the God of the world. And he says, really? So God is the God of the world? Of course, he was being smart aleck. They said, yeah. He says, why are you then giving the Jews a hard time? Okay? So he delivered the message. Which one took the second one? Interfaith is a good idea. Anybody? Okay. So how about the third? Is violence a function of religion? That's a tough one. I wouldn't take it either. Get you in trouble. Okay, so what's a good substitute for religion? That's even tougher. But did you guys take that on? Oh, you're brave. Or foolish. I'm not sure which. So what did you guys come? Did you guys come up? Science?
Okay. Okay, so we kind of had a couple of things come up. The first thing was like the intention of religion and how you look at it. And that concept came up like, are you following a religion for having a relationship with God, or are you following a religion for the founding principles behind the religion? And it's the goal to go to heaven, or it's the goal to be a good person while you're here kind of concept. And then also we talked about how there's already kind of an existing substitute for religion, and that is science. And it's kind of one of the things that we kind of addressed with that was that some people choose to follow science as if it's like written down and that this is how that goes. But then with that, you lose so many important aspects of humanity, such as like love and compassion. You can't really write those things down, but we know that they exist because we can feel it. And I don't know. I kind of got lost.
I think that's really good.
I'm getting all mushy now. So.
You know, Dan told you I was one of 6 brothers, 6 boys and 2 girls. And the boys split up. 3 of us ended up in the USA, and 3 remained there. And the 2 girls are there also. They're still in Bethlehem. So of the 3 of us, one lives in California. Okay, I live in here. And the other one is a retired professor who lives up in the state of Washington. So we've got the Northwest straddled here. The one in California is a self-declared communist. He doesn't believe, he believes in the good of the people. Whatever you do for the people, that's important. He believes in socialized medicine, does not believe in God, doesn't pray, doesn't fast. He thinks religion sucks. I mean, he does not beat around the bush about it, okay? Right? He's 4 years younger. I blame the University of Oregon because he got his master's from here. But I can't because the other one also got his master's from here. And the retired professor. He doesn't pray. He does not fast. He doesn't drink. He doesn't eat pork. He made He's living, playing the stock market and making a ton of money. Okay? And recently, I think he's 70. So recently, I think his spirituality started to migrate northward, okay, to his brains. So he is secretly, I learned, giving money, including to the University of Oregon, to help tuitions, okay, foreign students specifically. But if he knows I said that, I'll be in big trouble. Yeah. Well, yeah, he might get, no, he's not that violent. So here's 3 of us, okay, raised by the same parents, okay? Like I said, they were not preachers. That we learned it by example, right? So you see what the point I'm trying to make here is that our diversity, okay, is part of who we are, okay? Even within one family, you cannot get the same, not all of them are going to march to the same songs or even like the same music, right? You guys recognize that. And that harks to what you said about science as a substitute, and yet not really, you're not really fully behind it, I can tell, because you said we know things like compassion and mercy and things like that, and love. Though we cannot prove them scientifically, we cannot, even with the air we breathe, we cannot see it, right? But we believe in it because we know we learn scientifically that we need air to. But how many of you either experienced or know an experience where a teenager would come to mom and she says, I'm going out with Steve. And mom would go, oh my God, why is Steve? He's horrible. He's not good for you, honey. Oh, mom, you don't know nothing. He's the best in the world. He's the greatest guy in the world, right? And 2 weeks later, Steve is history, right? And she's moved on to other. So love, we say love is blind, right? Love is blind. We can't prove, there are some things we cannot prove on logical grounds alone, okay? Why does man, of all the species, give of their time, money, charity to people he's never ever seen somewhere else in another continent, okay? We donate our hard-earned money to children in Biafra, in Ethiopia, right? Why? Explain that logically, scientifically to me. Because I feel good, but we can do it totally anonymous, okay? Is that part of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy? Is it under self-actualization? I don't know. There are questions. Now, doctors are really smart, right? They know the body well, right? Can they prevent their own death? No. One of the arguments in Quran about, oh God, I'm going to blow it. I can't remember the person now, but he's arguing with one of the kings who says, my God, I think it was Abraham, my God brings life and he brings life out of the dead. And the king says, I can give life and death. Look, and he takes a subject, he's alive now, watch this, he's dead now, he cut his head off. See, I give life and death. Whoever I choose lives, whoever I choose dies. So the guy goes, well, my God brings the sun out of the east. He says, you try that. You try bringing it out of the west. The guy couldn't do it. So even if President Obama, even if Bill Gates, even if those rich, smart guys, the smartest guy, find the smartest guy, name new ones. If they want to go on a picnic in Eugene, Oregon, when it's raining like now, can they command the sun to come out because, look, I'm the president, I want a sunny day tomorrow because I want to have a picnic? Can they do it? The answer is no, they cannot. All right, well, what does science have to do with that? Well, there are questions we can't answer. Yeah. Until science becomes the answer all till doctors don't die, okay? There is a question mark that's left to the spirit, to the soul. And we feel it. We know it's there when we listen. So, you know, that's an eternal question that we'll grapple with till you know, Judgment Day, or till science conquers all, right? I know it's your time, and I don't want to monopolize it. Thank you very much. Thank you.